It's like Pokemon. You have to do three.
Mm-hmm.
Black square, different black square, and then
There you are.
the horrible thing waiting at the end.
Hello.
The Raichu? Is that me? Is that the last one? I can't remember.
Raichu.
Hi.
Raichu is the last Pikachu. Yeah.
Okay. What's the middle one?
It doesn't have a middle one.
It's just two?
It's just two Pikachu's. It's oh no, there's Pichu. Pichu is the baby.
Yeah. Okay. I was
Mm-hmm.
going to say that sounds like a lie. That frankly sounds like bullshit to me.
You know what? This is over. I wouldn't have expected you to be a Pokemon player.
I am not, but I was 11 at one point.
At one point, we've all been children.
And the year of see every time, well, not every time because it's not like I've ever done this before, but
Mm-hmm.
every time I talk to someone on one of these, and it's for an interview or something, and I come near mentioning a date that would identify like my birth or whatever, I always think that you have to do the Will Miniker method. You have to insist I'm 19 years old. My name is Caden San Francisco,
Yeah.
and I'm a fucking star on the internet.
Yeah, I have a million TikTok followers.
Yeah, we're all 19.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. So we're doing this from different rooms of the same house right now.
Yeah, no, we all live in the TikTok house actually. Me and
Yeah,
Michael do.
yeah. Cameron Dallas lives in the attic. He tells us when we can eat.
It's a decent life. I'm getting tired of cream corn.
Yeah,
Um
Garman Bozia.
Garmonbozia as they call it. So hello everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you Michael for being here. This is Dull Care. It's a stream. I'm Bryn Nebor. That's Michael S. Judge. And I wanted to ask. I assume a lot of you people don't actually know me. um, so a lot of you people probably just know Michael, which is great because Michael is cool. But I wanted to ask you here to talk about I guess parapolitics basically.
I gotta admit, you define that for me in your terms because different people seem to mean different things by that.
I'm not actually sure. I found out about it because of your recommendation of that book. Oh, you were talking about it at one point. It's called like CIA um, as organized crime, and like
Oh,
following
right. Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
links got me to a web like the parapolitics guys. Um, I don't really know. It sounds better to me than conspiracy theories. Um,
I think that's its basic use, that like we're talking about the stuff that other people don't consider, kosher under the rubric of politics, but we don't want to call it conspiracy theories because that implies that we're about to do some real dumb shit
yeah,
and that we don't know what we're talking about.
to distance ourselves from reptilians and things
Yeah.
like that that are just obviously silly. Um, but yeah, I guess that's all for me. It's just like an actual history that is based off of what we know that seems to be so okay. So I've always been, as long as I can remember, the friend in my friend group or family who kind of generally believes in things and knows about and tries to research things that most people find a little distasteful. Um,
Yeah.
and I feel like I watched the pilot episode of the X Files when I was like 7 years old, and and like that sent me down like a Usenet like computer hole of just
Okay,
like
good.
you know
I know this kind of framework then.
yeah, and that sort of like I leftist politics happened very early in my life, and I kind of was always like very skeptical of things because, as I said before offline, I grew up very Christian, and so like I was very afraid of being lied to. But I also was very easily I'm able to believe things like MK Ultra before the actual it actually became something that you can prove to as unclassified or whatever. Um, so I've always been that kind of person, and And when I heard you on True Anon, I thought I checked out your show, and it was great to hear somebody talking about all of this stuff in a framework that made any fucking sense to me at all.
Well, I'm glad it did. I'm glad some of it kind of seemed to fit together in any way at all, because I worry sometimes that I'm just sort of like, kicking sand in a certain direction, and like, it's going to form a pile of sand at some point, but those are all individual little sort of I don't
Uh-huh.
know, is that adding up to anything? Am I imparting any sort of like historical direction here, or am I just kind of going like, and one time,
There was the
there
other
was
thing
this
I heard about.
guy. Yeah, that's I've really tried to, I didn't listen to podcasts until pretty recently, and I've really tried to not at all resemble the kind of, tales of the weird type shit.
Sure.
Like, I really don't do that. I
Hmm.
really don't want to, talk about, well, I was going to use something like the Mothman, but actually the Mothman could be interesting
The
if you did
Mothman
it
is cool, actually.
politically. Yeah. Yeah, if you did it in a way that mattered. But, you know, um there's a very famous show that I could probably, it I don't want to say their name because I don't want to insult them, because I have nothing against them, but
Hmm.
uh they are exactly what I don't want to be.
Okay.
Uh those of you who listen to a lot of podcasts can probably think of the name of the show. Um, they are
Oh, a
exactly,
podcast
yeah,
show.
yeah.
Hmm.
Who just kind of week after week, and then
Hmm.
and in New York in 1901, you won't fucking believe what happened. It was
What
it was
about the
it,
Jersey Devil? And then and
yeah,
that stuff is always it's always sensationalized, and it's always about, uh, they'll throw in serial killers, they'll throw in like just weird
right.
stories. It's never trying to get at. And I guess the thing that really impressed me and endeared me to your show was this sort of stitching together a history that sort of
Yeah.
makes everything lock into place. Because I mean, it's hard for me not to sort of suspect that, you know, reptilians and the Jersey Devil or whatever like get thrown into the CIA as a
Oh
way of
yeah.
discrediting that kind of
Oh,
thought.
I mean, we have, not with those particular things, but that basic technique. I mean, we have proof of that. We
Yeah.
we know that different branches of the government have been behind the promotion of different, I don't know if you call them conspiracy theories exactly, because I don't know if they ever were sort of coherent enough to be called theoretical, but
Hmm.
conspiracy events or whatever. They, lots of alien shit and, Area
Yeah.
51 things. And it all turns to be out about, covering up the test flights for the SR-71 spy craft or whatever.
Right.
It's you've we've talked before in discussing doing this about how to kind of suss out um just goofy shit from things that are actually worth paying attention to. And that's one answer is, I think, from a very simple story like that you have years and years and years of uh talk about alien spaceships. And by the way, I'm not ruling out the existence of aliens or anything.
No,
I
of
have
course not.
I I have no, like, I didn't come here to be like, look, the most important thing is that there are no aliens. All right. And don't
Don't think
think
about
about
it. Yeah.
why I'm saying that. Like, no, I mean, I actually do believe in aliens, and as to whether they've, ever made any contact with this planet, I have no fucking idea.
Same.
I've heard some wild things from I'll put it this way. I've heard some wild shit that people in power believe is true. I have no
Okay.
idea if it is true, but I've heard some insane things that I know powerful people who have serious actual influence are operating on the belief that it's true. Uh,
Right.
so I'll say that. But what did I come up with? Oh yeah, too, the idea that this would all cut back down to, we're developing, the highest priority secrecy spy plane, and it's more convenient for us to have a bunch of rumors about, alien spacecraft over, a particular stretch of the desert than a spy plane getting outed too early. That kind of thing, both the sort of sense that it imbues, the click that, okay, yes, this doesn't take it any sort of um not vast conspiracy to believe, because sometimes there are vast conspiracies that does
Yeah.
happen, they're real, but a vast sort of baroque logic to believe, you know
Hmm.
there are vast conspiracies, but the logic of them is very fucking simple.
Yeah.
It's someone powerful wants something, and a lot of people in between either just do their jobs, you do what they're told, or are cut into the reward in some way.
Right.
And
A-
that's it. That's all it takes.
Absolutely. And I think that that's when you can, especially with stuff, well, so with stuff from the past, right? What we have information on COINTELPRO and chaos and things like this,
Right.
it's very, and also obviously Operation Sunshine and Operation Paperclip and all of these things like are basically factual, and we can look at them and say this isn't a conspiracy theory. It's just plays that were moved around by powerful people.
Right.
And I guess where I start to wonder, or the way I am trying to let this affect my brain, having that knowledge and like having that sort of like through line of history, is how does it benefit you to think about it now? Um, and does it? For example, one thing
Yeah.
you said on the show is that you have an inkling that Trump might be a CIA asset.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
I think I've found since that show more evidence to think that.
mhm. um, and to me, that's like, I was talking to Matt on this stream, Matt Chrisman, and
Yeah.
his sort of perspective was like, well, if if you can't believe that Trump really has COVID, or you can't believe that Trump is anything, like you're kind of in like this sort of epistemic free fall. Um,
Right.
and if you can't believe anything, you're just lost. And it's like my feeling is like, yeah, we are that kind of nihil. I'm a little that I'm in terms
Yeah.
of like ep- epistemolo- epistemology. I feel a little nihilistic about that. It's like I don't know if I can know anything for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you don't ever question that, you're what kind of weird certainty do you have? That like that would never occur to you to think, can I know anything? I mean, my sort of my academic years were basically spent in various ways looking at things and then going, no, you can't actually know anything. So shut up. That was kind of what I did academically. Um, and yeah, I mean, there is a stasis of certainty in which, you know, one need do nothing because the elect and the oh God, I'm so embarrassed to forget this word. The preterite, the Pynchon word,
Mm-hmm.
the elect and the preterite they're already sorted out. The Calvinist God from the beginning of the universe knows what's going to happen and what should happen, and all things are in the design. So be cool, like don't
Mm-hmm.
worry about it, and that breeds the same sort of inaction, or can breed the same sort of inaction, as just feeling like, well, I know nothing. There's no way to know anything. How do I know that I'm sitting here? Blah blah blah. And to me, I don't know enough about evolutionary biology to know if this is like some sort of neural stopgap. But to me, there's just a point at which those questions become I impossible to care about.
Right.
Like,
You can't be like reducing everything to to Descartes all the time. Like you'll just fucking
right,
lose your mind if you try to do that.
right, and if you are, where does Descartes get his authority? Why would you believe in the models of things that you're using to reduce yourself?
Yeah.
If you don't believe that you know anything now, why would you believe what someone else says about how you don't know anything? That is a contradiction in terms. So the question of whether I'm sitting here talking, I mean, until I'm informed otherwise, I have to deal with things as though I am, you know.
Yeah.
So if like a Blakean demon appear, a little orc appears over in the corner of the room and like gives me some signals, I'll think about it. you know,
Right.
it I won't just I won't dismiss it, but until that point, there are certain base realities, like say physical suffering. Physical suffering clarifies a lot of abstract questions.
A 100%.
Yeah, if you've ever been in serious pain for a long time, there's some shit you just don't care about humoring anymore, and and I take that to be not just a philosophical thing, but a political thing that um I don't want whatever is true, whatever sort of not just operative but metaphysical definition of truth we could come to. I don't want people to suffer. That's sort of an operating point.
Right.
I don't want to inflict physical suffering on a lot of other people. And I think the models of politics that we're given, in any sort of mainstream education or from major news sources are totally inadequate to, help, not even inadequate to help stop that from happening, but inadequate even to explain to the least degree why it's happening,
Yeah.
how it's happening.
And they don't care to.
Right? That's exactly not their job. Their
Yeah.
job is actually the opposite of that. Their job is to provide for you as narrow a world as possible in which you still feel, usually wrongly, like you're exercising some degree of choice, and thereby, you pile up sort of your uh, web browser search history of choices, and now it's a personality, and you then get to make further choices based on the sort of edges and details of your personality, and you eventually find other people who have gone through the same 80 steps, and then you get to form prejudices against people who haven't, and then you take five more steps and hate the people you were with before and think they're enormous pieces of shit because you have new friends.
Yeah.
This is what the mainstream newspaper is in. It's a lifestyle industry. It's not serious. And I say this as someone who I worked for a big mainstream newspaper.
Okay.
My family comes from that background, that business. I've been around the inner workings of a mainstream newspaper. One you would definitely know if I talked about it my entire life. I've been in and out of there since I was a little kid.
Mm.
Um, I know how it works about as well as someone can, and as an outsider can at least. And I know for a fact, stories of shit being shelved because people just didn't want it in there, and not stories that probably anyone on either of the coasts would care about, or anyone shit even outside the city would care about,
Uh,
but but things that were of major importance to real people just disappearing because someone had lunch with a police commissioner.
mhm.
You know, I know that happened. Um,
Right. That's always the funny thing about conspiracy theories to me is that like people who are always so dumbfounded. They're like, "Oh, you're saying all of these people had to know and cover up this big secret?" And it's like not. I mean, like people
Not
are
really.
so willing to do that for anybody who gives them like the slightest glance or benefit.
Yeah. I mean, you read, this is when people ask me, how do you find out about, the parapolitical, let's say, or how do you differentiate it from conspiracy theories? My answer is always read history,
Hmm.
because what has actually happened and is documented and is agreed upon, and no historian, at any major university will, you know, if you email them and ask, "Hey, is this real?" They'll say, "Well, first of all, what the fuck are you doing?" But second,
Why
yeah,
are you
it's
asking
real.
this?
just that stuff, just the absolutely agreed upon stuff
Hmm.
is fucking insane. And whenever people talk about, that's a perfect example, but so many people would have to be in on this. Read about Iran Contra.
Yeah.
Like, they were. There were hundreds of people, and some of them knew exactly what they were doing and why. And some of them, even when a guy from, a relatively minor paper 20 years later came to talk to them about it, would just openly be like, oh yeah, the Nicaraguan thing where we were selling the arms and the drugs. Yeah, they would just tell him, weren't even ashamed.
Yeah.
Yeah, a, a lot of people did have to know about it in some degree or another, and it's in some degree or another that I don't think people take into account enough.
Hmm.
That the did a lot of people have to have the entire plan for, okay, we're going to try to replicate some sort of American friendly dictatorship in Nicaragua after the fall of Anastasio Somoza by selling cocaine, particularly in racial ghettos in the United States.
Hmm.
And ideally, we're going to find a new and cheaper form of cocaine, because cocaine at this moment is kind of a luxury drug and no one actually does that much of it at any one time because it's so expensive. So we're going to need to work on that. And then in a couple of years, some guys are going to get kidnapped at an embassy. No,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
nobody knew all that at the beginning. Probably nobody had a full grasp of the entire thing at any one point.
Hmm.
But there were lots of people who knew their little part. There were,
And
you
clung
know,
to it
yes,
like death.
absolutely. Yes. I mean,
I
guys
love
who
it.
are still talking, still proudly somewhere in fucking Miami right now.
Hmm.
At this hour, there is a guy at a bar going, I was the one who made the call that got the San Francisco people in on the whole Nicaragua thing.
Yeah.
They didn't know each other before me, and I used to have this taxi stand, and the taxi stand was actually, cops would come around, and some of them weren't cops, and and yes, it's a million people like that. It's guys who own an auto shop who also happen to sell a little coke, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden, via selling a little coke, a political actor gets connected to their distributor, who connects them to the person above him, and all of a sudden, the two guys who run an auto shop, who in their minds, they're two guys who run an auto shop.
Yeah.
They don't have any fucking thing to say about the political destiny of Nicaragua. They are now part of, in the sense of people who sort of don't believe this is possible, they're in, the conspiracy. That's what it is. It's just people doing what they do, often what they were going to do anyway.
Yeah. And
These
it's
are the best conspiracies of all.
yeah, and it's always baffling to me, especially I've been reading I'm a couple hundred pages into The Devil's Chessboard, and
Yeah.
like that's like for a while there, like the Holocaust was kind of a conspiracy theory. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
and like you know, you can't look at that and with a straight face be like, how many people had to know about that they were killing millions of people and all
Yeah.
keep their mouth shut? That doesn't seem plausible. It's like it happened. We all know about it. Same with MK
Yes.
Ultra, like MK Ultra or the Tuskegee experiments. Like
Yeah.
they
There.
no one cared.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the book. I had to read it in high school, but it was a book in large part about uh, Henry Morgenthau in Roosevelt's administration
Hmm.
trying to get people to, showing them, photos and having translated intercepted documents, saying, no, they've already taken all the Jews' property and they've forced them to live in ghettos, and now they're sending them to what look like work camps, but they're not work camps. They're killing them there, and people are going, they're killing that many Jews. Why would they
That
kill that
many,
many Jews? What is the point
right?
of that? And it's like, yeah, rationally, that doesn't make sense. Why in the middle of a fucking war would you dedicate this astonishing excess of resources to a project that makes no sense because it doesn't make any sense is why.
Yeah.
Because the people doing it are out of their fucking minds. It doesn't have to make any sense.
Yeah.
You know, this is, does it make sense as kind of the last test of these things? That's good, I guess, as a general rule. You can't always use it.
Right, and that's the stuff I've been really running up against in terms in like the thing that is so baffling about like reading the Devil's Chessboard is like, wait, why are they? Because it like as a communist, like it doesn't even really make sense if you're a capitalist to kill all those people. It's like that's good
Right.
free labor. What are you doing? But they did it, and I did like. There's no real reason. It's just fucking evil and terrible, and like they
Yeah,
just
to try to encompass, you know, and I have to think that's part of why it was. I mean, look, for a lot of people, they didn't do anything about the Holocaust because they didn't care. They didn't
mhm,
want to. It didn't matter to them. But surely there were at least some people who genuinely couldn't get their minds around it. And I mean, now, you know, 75 years later, can I get my mind around it?
not
No,
really. Yeah,
absolutely not. But I know it happened. And
yeah,
if you went around saying, you know, in any public forum that you were sure it didn't happen, I mean, that would be your ass.
right.
That would, you would be fucked, and you should be. And yet the idea of um something so much tinier and more explicable than that being completely out of bounds. Uh, okay, if that's
Yeah.
how you need the world to be,
Yeah, I mean, for me, the really first big like line in the sand with a lot of with a lot of people I knew at the time was 9/11, where,
yeah,
basically as soon as it happened, there was this schism in like anyone who was paying attention and everyone else.
yeah.
And it was just like, I mean, even like if you have you seen Fahrenheit 9/11 recently?
It's been a long time,
Like that
probably since it came out.
that movie is like not very far away from like a truther documentary in a lot of places. Like he doesn't go that far where it's like still put like acceptable, but like
Right.
you know it was like none of all of this is a lie. Something
Yeah.
else happened, and that was sort of like pretty understood by anybody who was paying attention, and then it just like continually got covered up by just like a blast of propaganda
Right.
and like
And I think that's an important distinction that you just made that is one of the reasons things either become official history or they get consigned to the world of conspiracy. The phrase something else happened. That, you know, if you ask me what happened on 9/11, I have an idea and I would tell you an idea and then I would say, but I don't know for, you know, 100%. Here there are a few things I do know,
right.
and then the rest is what I'm able to sort of, you know, intuit from those. The idea that we were stuck on anything at saying something else happened, but I don't know what. The idea that we have to say, look, the official story is bullshit, and here are 1,000 ways it's bullshit.
Yeah.
But what exactly did happen, I'm not certain. We can't do that. I don't know if it's as a species or as a civilization. I mean, certain. I think there have been civilizations better and worse at doing that.
Mm.
Um, but especially right here and right now, and with the, you know, amount of control and influence over, I mean, even what people like to consider their innermost personal thoughts that media and politics exert at this particular moment. The idea that, okay, the official story about something is dog shit,
Mm.
uh, but I don't have something the same size and shape to fill it with. You
Right.
know, the people hate that. People either need to know, like, are there no aliens or is there an alien buried 40 miles from here? One or the
I
other. You
must
know?
know.
Yeah. The
Yes.
idea that, like, well, yeah, there are probably aliens, but let's see, how long would it take for them to get here? Like, no,
Yeah. What
fuck
if
you.
our
No.
Yeah, people really fucking hate uncertainty.
Right,
And
right,
that's why it's
right.
just much easier to believe whatever the narrative is as a certainty rather than,
Yeah,
they definitely did not find his passport in the rubble. Are you fucking
that's
shitting me?
so funny. That is so fun. The idea that like it is literally it's the why don't they make the plane out of a black box joke except for passports? Why don't they make the plane out of the passport?
Yeah.
The black box didn't survive. No one on board. Why don't they make people out of the passport? Like
They
make
should.
the seats out of the passport. What miraculous form of fucking synthetic leather is
Yeah.
this shit?
Did any of the
Yeah.
papers in Building 7 survive? No.
Right, right, right. And the idea that we can just sort of like throw that in that like this other shit we'll spend, I mean we really got to check our bases with coordinating with the ISI and Mossad, but at the end, oh yeah, we know it was him because his passport fell out of a plane. Like,
Yeah.
do you
In
understand?
onto the floor.
If the plane hadn't hit buildings and had just gone back up into the sky, I still wouldn't believe that.
Right.
That's such
It's
bullshit.
insane.
Yeah, and I think we have begun to see now, thanks in large part to the TrueAnon guys who
Yeah.
deserve a lot of credit. Um, People on the left generally talking more openly, saying, "Okay, look, September 11th, like that was bullshit, right? Like that was bullshit." And kind of trying to, and I should say, House Trotter on Twitter, Ben, he deserves a ton of
Hmm.
credit for that too, because he has really put in the hours to assemble a cogent, intelligible narrative of the entire thing.
Which is
Um,
it's very impressive. Like listening to him
yeah,
talk about it, that you could put all of that. I mean, because you you I always lose track of like, oh yeah, that is also bullshit. Like there's different
right,
aspects of
right,
it, and then it's like, well, some of the loose change stuff doesn't even have to be bullshit for everything
yeah.
else to be. And it's he yeah, definitely if you're watching this, follow House Trotter on Twitter. Um,
Yeah, and that he's working from guys like Kevin Fenton, the guy he always name checks, who
mhm.
he literally had to go back and line by line read every internal government report that's been declassified about this. And the guy who was the head of the Alex station, the CIA station that intentionally black holed all the evidence that an attack was coming. Um,
Yeah.
that only got discovered by that guy Kevin Fenton, the researcher, because someone had written this person's name in like pencil on a document, linking it to the alias that was used in the document to explain
Oh my
to
goodness.
some third person, like, yeah, this is Richard Blee. That's what RB or whatever, that's what that means.
Hmm.
Um, so purely an accident that we know who that guy is. And it took one person knowing, and then one person, maybe the same one, fucking up for a second person, and then a third person or group declassifying it, and a fourth person, a researcher, going through all of it to find this, and then a fifth person, Ben, discovering what that researcher had found, and then sixth, seventh, and eighth people starting TrueAnon
Yeah.
and having been on for me to know, that.
Yeah.
So we talk about, I think cheered wouldn't be the word because what we're finding out is not shit that cheers you, but I guess I'm encouraged in a way that 9/11 is no longer the automatic like door slamming, you know, uh, topic of conversation it used to be.
Hmm.
Uh, and I always think, you see the way, like with say Gary Webb and Iran Contra, like
Hmm.
it took 25 fucking years to assemble the entire thing. It's not like he got his first witness or first person involved and first version of the story and just put it down on paper, the basic narrative, and that was it.
Hmm.
That's not how serious people report these things. They want to
Yeah.
substantiate everything. They want to get witnesses and people involved. Um, so I'm happy to see that. I mean, I remember I don't know how people view this at all now. View the Onion now. Um,
Mm.
but for
Still fun, I think, generally.
yeah, I mean, I think people haven't. I'm going to use an online word now. I don't think it's been canceled.
Oh, his
Uh, uh, um, but I remember, that was, the Onion was in great currency among just like general sort of lib and lefty types when I was in college and shit.
Same.
And them doing a story, I can't remember the title of it, but it was something like quote unquote truthers managed to find only thing more depressing than actual September 11th attacks or something like that. It was all about like the fact that there are people so stupid as to not believe the official story is the only thing more depressing than the official story.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, and I remember people walking around with that idea for years. That 9/11 was something was like they would listen to you maybe talk about Kennedy or something because and I think
That
genuinely.
That's so because what I was gonna say before was like one of the things that's been so frustrating and sort of boggling for me is that I am a person who has consistently, since I was a child, sought out information, whatever whatever you can imagine is true. Um, and like I didn't find out like really what happened like for the Vietnam War until I was like in my
Yeah.
20s.
Yeah.
And like I had to like list I had to go to like communist writings to like find out like, oh wait, no, they weren't even bad. We were
Yeah.
entirely wrong. It wasn't just that we were fighting a losing war, but not only that, like the thing you were just mentioning, JFK.
Yeah.
JFK is one that I honestly didn't even know was a part of anything. I always just assumed like because everyone would always just talk about like, well, he didn't really shoot, and it's like, well, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the point? Like even
Yeah.
in the movie JFK, it feels like, well, okay, maybe he didn't. What? Who gives a shit?
Yeah. What is
Until
it?
basically listening to your show, I was like, oh yeah,
I think that's how a lot of people treat it. Unfortunately, it's just like, oh, a crazy guy either did or didn't do something. What
right.
the fuck do I care?
But like
And
recognizing it as like the paramount point of a military coup of America is entirely a different story.
right.
That is absolutely necessary that everyone should know, especially if you consider yourself a quote unquote leftist. Like, you can't just be going around and being like, let's throw Molotov cocktails at the cops until you realize that we don't have, not only do we not have a democracy, but it's an aristocracy run by people you don't know their names.
Yeah. And something like Vietnam, the Kennedy's death has so much to do with the idea. It enrages me. I mean, I gotta fucking leave the room every time I see some Ken Burns, like
Mm-hmm.
soldier
Poor
silhouetted on a
soldiers.
hillside, and then the fucking soundtrack is a trumpet going, and a fucking
Follow the swords.
voiceover going, we did some good things and we did some bad things. I was with honorable men and I was with sons of bitches, but the war's hell. It's like
Yeah. Go
fuck.
fuck
That was a
yourself, man.
genocidal project. Like that was a borderline genocide. The amount of
Yeah.
people we killed and the inhumanity with which we killed them there is still, I think, not understood. Like Vietnam should be thought of by Americans on basically the same level the Holocaust is thought of by Germans.
Yeah. Or at least
And
slavery.
right, right. I mean the utter shame that Germans still have. Well, most Germans, the
Yeah, well.
the laws that are passed about Holocaust denialism being illegal in Germany,
Yeah.
and in the United States, we still have people going, look, if the president hadn't gotten in the general's way, we would have won that goddamn war.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Jesus Christ!
Yeah, it's crazy.
It really, I mean, it with any research into it at all, and I think the Devil's Chessboard, the biography of Alan Dulles, is a book I'm always recommending to everyone.
It's so
Um,
important.
yeah, it's an incredible book, and it's what I was talking about earlier of, how learning how to distinguish conspiracy, like just knowing the facts in that, just what is in that book, just I mean, written by a guy who writes for like Harper's and shit,
He
and the
founded
Atlantic.
Salon, yeah.
Yeah, he founded Salon. Like, this is not a scary person. And the simple factual information that he put in that book should make you punch through a window. Like, it should
Absolutely.
entirely reorganize your view, not just of where you are, but of what the entire history of the United States is. And realize that basically we think we understand, at least in broad outlines, something of modern history. Modern meaning, a couple hundred years or whatever.
Yeah.
And really, what we know is a kind of pageant put on since a few years after the end of World War II.
Hmm.
That's that's what we actually have some kind of tangible grasp of.
And speaking about that pageant, I want to talk to you about this book.
Oh,
Uh,
hell yeah!
I read this book um, when I was 21. Um,
That's about the right time.
and it really kind of realigned a lot of things for me about everything. But I want to say that I absolutely did not understand it. Like I didn't
Oh, I
have any
mean,
sort of conception of the book at all. Um,
there
um,
there are things in that book that
no one will
well,
understand.
I know Pynchon himself doesn't understand and doesn't remember having written. He is in one of the few direct attributed comments we have from him. He said something like, there's shit in that book that I'll never know why I put in there, or something like that. I mean, he really, one of the reasons Gravity's Rainbow is strange, is because Pynchon himself, I don't think, is that proud of it.
Hmm.
He seems, to the small extent that we have access to, his opinions as a human being. If you asked him, hey, Thomas Pynchon, we're talking for some reason, uh,
Yeah.
what book of yours do we put in the modern library or whatever?
Yeah.
I think he would say something like Mason and Dixon.
You think
I think,
so?
yeah, and
Mason
that's,
and
I don't
Dixon.
particularly like that book.
Hmm.
Um, I think that's how Pynchon imagines himself, as basically like a weirdo version of sort of a humanist historical novelist. Um, and I think Gravity's Rainbow for him was, I mean, you can sense it in all through the text. I mean, paranoia and entropy are two of the main themes, written during a really fucked up time,
Hmm.
uh, in both his life and in American history, when really fucked up things were happening every goddamn day.
Yeah.
And he was right to suspect himself of being, I mean, he wrote that while living on, beaches in and around LA, allegedly from like about 65 to 72. Imagine the shit he was in the middle of.
Yeah.
If you've read Chaos, the Tom O'Neill book, like,
Hmm.
Pynchon was one of those people. He
I
was
have.
one of the people that those CIA operations were designed to fuck with. Um, and he was also, by his own admission, doing a ton of drugs. Um, he
I would be too.
he's yeah, I mean, he seems to like smoking weed a lot just in general, and it comes up almost every one of his books has some. Even Mason and Dixon has that scene where they smoke hemp with George Washington.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I'm also a big fan.
but I unfortunately can't do it.
Right.
Yeah, for any followers out there, if you want to be like me, you don't have to do drugs.
Don't smoke the devil's cabbage.
Yeah, I could not give less of a shit whether anyone else smokes weed.
Yeah.
That is an official
me
position.
me neither.
uh,
And my
uh,
my whole show is kind of about that.
yeah,
But and I don't care.
but for
Um
what it's worth, I say that when this comes up, talking about Pynchon, because this gets maligned sometimes, like, oh yeah, just druggy, sort of goofy. Like,
yeah.
I not only don't smoke weed, I fucking hate weed. On the rare occasions that I like end up slightly influenced by any drug for any reason for a week afterwards, like I feel sick and wish I could like retract that week of my life. I don't do any of that shit, and it's not, for, about ideology. It's because I get fucking paranoid and psychotic.
Yeah.
Like it
No,
really, I have serious mental health problems. I shouldn't do it. Um,
don't do it.
yeah, and so the idea that this book, I think Pynchon to a degree writes some of it off anyway, a little bit to like, oh man, I was really fucking high, and
Right.
and and I guess I can see as an artist how you would want to do that, because having produced a book that many people were obsessive about and wanted to know the details of. I mean, I have a podcast that like 1,000 something people listen to, and it's weird to me.
I think
So
it's more than that. Oh well, what?
no, some amount of, I don't know,
Yeah, yeah.
is it more? uh, Whatever it is, like Thomas Pynchon has been at the center of like the mental life of a whole sort of subclass of weirdos for
Yeah.
what, almost 50 years now.
And I think the reason for that, I mean, correct me if you don't feel this way, but like there's something about especially this book, and I think there is, you've talked about this too, but like after I read this, I read most of the rest of his work, V and Crying of Love
Yeah.
49 especially. Um but this book specifically feels like some sort of key,
Yes.
some sort of linguistic like map to like lay over the rest of your vision that
Yeah.
like kind of made everything like when I read it I was like I remember when somebody straight up asked me like what is Gravity's Rainbow about, because you always say it's one of your favorite books, and I was like, well, it takes place in the 60s and the World War II is going on. And they were like, World War II happened in 1940. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh shit, wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was crazy because that was just like, I thought I slipped of a tongue. And then 10 years later, I was listening to your show and you were talking about the Benjamin constellation thing. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's like in
You're
my
kind of
brain.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
It sort of is a book about how World War II happened in like 1965. That yeah, that there is, as with nothing else I have ever seen, heard, read, whatever, there is a sense of being told one thing on one level and another thing on another level
mm-hmm.
in that book, animating every fucking phrase of it. I mean, every time I've read that, some little weird fragment will catch my attention. Just a few words, in a scene that otherwise seems to be there just to move a certain plot line along or as a joke or whatever. And I will get caught and start thinking, why did he put that in there?
Mm-hmm.
Why? This is something the book on its surface could utterly do without. So why bother? And that will lead you all fucking kinds of places,
Yeah.
including to some ones that if you were him, I imagine would be frightening.
Yeah. And so how old were you when you first read the book?
I was 20. I think yeah,
Okay.
I was 20 and I read it, and then in a weird coincidence had to read it for something else. So I read it twice within like 6 months when I
Oh
was
God.
20. Yeah, I really blasted my fucking brain out.
So so for me when I first read it, it was sort of I was ingesting all kinds of like philosophy as well
Yeah,
as
yeah.
like I was in college and I was sort of just like filling my brain with stuff, and it definitely stood out, and I thought it was fantastic on a level that it was better, but it also kind of felt of a piece where it was like, well, Burroughs was going on at this point, and like you could sort of like see the sort of flow of it as like a sort of like um zany kind of 60s. It was talking about something similar, and it often occupied a similar place in my mind as Dr. Strangelove. um
Yeah, there's people kind of try to put, I got to admit that I personally, I see that more with like V and Lot 49.
Yes.
That yeah, putting him in the same world as like, Terry Southern and people writing, kind of psychedelic satires or whatever.
Right. So when I was like 25, I read it again because I couldn't remember a lot of it. And I kept saying that it was my favorite book. And I was like, I should probably know what happens in Gravity's Rainbow.
Yeah.
And so I read it again, and it just felt like it was seething the second
Yeah.
time I read it, where it just felt like he was really angry. And that
Yeah.
really couldn't get that out of my mind for many years, where it was just like, what is he trying to, like, I get being mad at Nazis, and I get being mad at, like, missiles and like the carnage of people, but like it felt much more personal to him, and it feels like a more autobiographical book. um and that was what sort of really started to like haunt me about the book. And then when I heard your show, it just feels so obvious now, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think there are a few moments in the book where and again, like you got to read it 4 or 5 times before like even because there are parts that are plot line and parts that are not, and you got to read it 4 or 5 times just to know what's plot line and what isn't, because there are enough plots that they're complicated enough that there are sections where you'll go, okay, did that connect to anything, or was that just there?
yeah, what am I
um
reading?
yeah, and I think in the flux of that, a couple of moments that really stand out to me to sort of explain, because you're right, the rabid anger of certain parts of that.
Yeah.
um the moment where uh it's Slothrop has met the Schwarzkommando and told them that there's going to be an American raid on them, because he meets Major Marvy when he's eating chili in that the church, the
Yeah,
basement
yeah.
of the church. Yeah, so he finds out about the raid and tells the Schwarzkommando not to be there. And later that night, Chicherin, the Russian, is there with Major Marvy, and is this is his kind of assignment to take care of the Schwarzkommando in the rubble of the war, but he's also obsessed with destroying his half brother. So it's got an entirely different meaning for him, and he has the vision of the giant hand floating in the sky and just slowly going, oh, like
Yeah.
the realizing that this war has never been about communism versus fascism, or about the West versus the East, or about the Allies versus the Axis. What it has always been about is the greater mass of us versus what in this book specifically he calls the rocket cartel.
Yeah, yeah.
But you could generalize simply to say the the emergent technocrats who have a vision of synthesizing human life with technology and controlling it forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the war is about. That's who the combatants were, and they won. We did not win.
Yeah.
We decidedly lost on all kinds of levels, and that I don't think it's. There's some people who will consider this over the top. I don't think it's ridiculous to say that a lot of aspects of our lives are direct. No, I know it's not ridiculous. What the fuck am I saying?
You got
Let's
it.
just say that a lot of aspects of our lives are just directly continuous with the Third Reich, and there's no real break between them. The same people just got different employers, and
Yes.
the
And
plans they were working on at Company A were then taken over to Company B, and tried out on a much larger scale in a much larger market. I mean, globalization that hit like a bastard. They thought they were going to be able to do it in Germany, but goddamn, it's the 1980s and we are all partying.
right, which is why
I
like
feel fucking great.
which is why like works like The Man in the High Castle and things like start to become more toothless as you sort of read actual history, and sort of kind of
Yeah,
this picture comes into view that like we are living in the whatever number Reich, like
Yeah.
the goal of the American left or the left in general is not to be to like trying to stop anybody from winning. They won. Like
Yeah.
we are rolling a boulder up a hill at this point.
Yeah. If you're still at the, the stage where you think like you have to join the fight,
Yeah.
you, you might need to back up a little bit.
Yeah.
They shit on our graves once a year. Like we are fucking toast. Um, you got to go back to the beginning of the beginning and
Mhm.
figuring out. I mean, every time I think about this question, where the left is and what it can do, and these sort of grand, vague ideas, I think of the footage that came out of that DSA conference last year, or the year before, and just like,
Mhm.
oh my god, oh, we're all going to die.
Well, probably half of those people are assets.
Yeah, and probably some of the people involved in the most embarrassing parts of that are also thoroughly decent people who really believe what they believe
Yeah.
and just have never been given any other example of like how to be a human being in public. And the fact that it's like you can't fight a revolution when Brace on TrueAnon recently said something that I think is absolutely right and makes me pissed off every day. Now that it's cool to be a socialist, now that talking about socialism is cool, everybody thinks socialism is about them for
Yeah.
some reason.
Mhm.
Everybody thinks it's like a movement that I'm the star of, like it's grunge or something. It's
Right.
it's it's a fucking cultural motif,
It is.
you
It's a
know.
subculture.
Yeah, and inevitably that's we'll look back if there's anywhere to look back from, and go like, oh yeah, grunge. It was like Brit pop. It was like fucking Oasis for
Yeah.
a while there. Um, and of course, it's not true of everybody, but we got to realize, I mean, things so much more basic than even political indoctrination or whatever. That people don't have examples of how to behave.
Mhm.
People don't know how to like be in a group and not fuck everything up immediately.
Right.
Yeah, people don't know how to talk. I mean, we
Well,
are.
people don't know how to like extend power and like organize it to a point where they can like functionally have a conversation with more than 10 people. And like
Absolutely.
that was like that happened to me like I lived in New York City when Occupy happened, and that was like I was like, we're fucking doomed. Like, there's no like the project now has to be to get anyone on the same page. But like that was
Right.
clearly immediately like I spoke to someone I am 100% certain was an agent. Like
Yeah.
I am not even I don't have a doubt in my mind like
Oh,
that
absolutely.
like
It's
they
it's
were
it's
there
such a
immediately.
yeah. It's such a fucking it's such an immediate joke that like, oh, the feds at the protest or whatever. It's like they are there though.
Yeah. And
Like,
they are going to fuck it up. And that's like,
yeah.
why wouldn't they? It's so easy for them. They don't, it's not hard. And if you gonna, if everybody's like, it just frustrates me to no end because I, from my friends, from people who are supposedly like on the left online in real life, like I've always been hearing like not everything's the CIA. And it's
Yeah.
like a lot of things are though. Like
Yeah.
you that cannot be a reaction to me saying one thing is. Like
Yeah.
you
And and the CIA, that's the thing. It's not a building where a certain number of people work.
yeah. No, no,
You
no.
know,
No, 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 no.
it's it's a self-reproducing structure that's plugged into different ports all over the fucking world.
Mhm.
It's just we can talk about the CIA because it's the most direct and I think sort of shameless, barefaced, projection of American power. When something you really can't make less ugly has to be done,
Yeah.
that's what the CIA is there for. So we can talk about them because they provide the most obvious examples of these things. But to think of the CIA as like Oh yeah, they put out every year. There's a directory of all the people in the
Yeah,
CIA.
no, 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 no.
If we call all of them, we'll know who they are. Like
Hmm.
that's not how it fucking works. It's this is something that it is really there as a convenience more than anything else. The
Hmm.
CIA exists to coordinate the networks of capital and influence and power that already existed.
Yes.
That's what it's there for. The CIA isn't a thing by itself. It didn't start and then make these things happen. It started as basically a fucking telephone switchboard for those things.
Hmm.
That's why it exists. Those things pre-exist it. And
Right.
if we're gonna do anything about it, we got to understand that for Christ's sake.
It's foundational, and I think what makes it more complicated now is it seems like like when you talk about it, like it's like, what do you call it? Like the deep state, do you say the intelligence community? Like it's
Uh,
hard to even like map language onto these incredibly ephemeral, like, and then they want it that way, right? So it's like,
yeah, absolutely.
um,
And there is, going back to talking the stuff we mentioned earlier about just normal people being involved in these things and maybe not even grasping the dimensions of their involvement. Like there is a distinct difference between what Brace, for example, like semi-jokingly, but also kind of not really calls the cabal,
yeah,
uh, and the world of the, if you want to call it the deep state or intelligence networks or whatever, there are people fishing on fucking islands in the Caribbean right now who have no idea that they were ever involved in some
yeah.
sort of intelligence operation.
Hmm.
There were thousands of people who went to casinos, millions of people who have been to casinos all over the world who have no idea that what they were actually part of was a CIA money laundering operation that
do,
involved bringing heroin out of Southeast Asia.
do you remember a couple of weeks ago when the Patriot Prayer guy got shot?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And like my immediate thought was like, well, that guy, like, was probably influenced by, something. And like, I had to tell people that like the FBI and the CIA have like recorded history that is like reported in very safe, not scary outlets like This American Life, of like 100% entrapping Muslim kids and lefty kids
Oh
into
yeah,
like
yeah.
doing terrorism. Like that, had they been doing it for a decade, and all of these people just who are, are supposed to know things, uh don't didn't know that. Like I
Yeah.
was shocked, honestly, by how many of the people who follow me didn't know these like very, what I thought were common knowledge, because it's like there's no through line, right? So those pieces of information just fall out of your head.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The idea, I mean, just there needs to be a fucking news organization strictly for the subject of entrapment.
Yeah.
Ju- just just for keeping track of, okay, what shit that you kind of vaguely remember from a few years ago
Hmm.
turns out to have been someone who didn't have any choice about it. I mean,
Yes, it happens
I
so much.
I don't know about you, but when I'm having a normal day, what I love to do is put one of my children in a sports car with a bag of cocaine and a bunch of guns,
Hmm.
and then give my other child a matching sports car, and
Yeah.
then drag race them at 110 miles an hour. That's a normal thing to do. We're normal,
Hmm.
and that's a way we express being normal.
I'm normal actually, and what's also normal is getting not arrested for that, and then all of my charges
Yeah.
dropped for it.
Yeah,
Like,
having the
come
police
on.
stop me and I say, "Hey, officer, looks like we're here again,
I
huh?"
have an
And he says,
illegal
"Yep."
I have an illegal gun, and that doesn't matter to anybody.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like fucking Peter Sellers in Lolita that
Yeah.
I just I just noticed is such a
Quilty.
normal type of guy over here. I thought, boy, he sure looks. I'd love to know such a normal, average kind of man.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, we're over time, so
Oh yeah,
but I guess we'll leave it there.
leave
At
it being normal.
leave it at extremely normal. Um,
Everybody, can you just be fucking normal out there?
Yeah.
God damn.
So I guess what I wanted, I think what I'm concluding is that it's, if you're watching this, it's so important for you to help other people understand just the basic foundation of where we are as a group of people who understand history and like I mean, like, and the current state of things. It's so hard
Yeah.
because it seems right now that like the intelligence community is like warring. Do you get
Yeah.
that sense that there's like not as much of a
Yes.
as
I think they have never been quite on the same page about Trump. Never known exactly how they wanted to use him. And I mean, this is the case with, fucking every CIA operation that's ever occurred, that there's been, internal dissension over it and people arguing and shit. It's normally not, though, how do we use the president?
yeah.
That's not the question they're asking. So yeah, it's been unusually weird. I mean, shit like Juan Guaido in Venezuela, and them just kind of like them going from he's the president of Venezuela and we won't call Maduro the president, to like him trying to jump over back walls to sneak into cabinet meetings, and Trump going the the illest insult. He's the Beto O'Rourke of Venezuela.
Incredible.
Oh, fucking owned. Fucking owned.
Destroyed. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's just like my feeling is like it could be anything. Like they
Yeah.
could 100% have given him COVID. They could be killing him. They could, be trying to kill. They maybe want him to win. They don't want him to win. We have no fucking
Yeah.
idea. We're in the
I,
dark
I
here.
I think probably there are every side you can think of, there are people on that side. And we have no idea which of them are going to win. And I wanted to say too, just to emphasize it, it's easy, for me to like take shots and make fun of DSA kids and stuff, but um we also got to remember, I think, that in trying to do anything political at this point, we're dealing with like the most damaged generation maybe in the history of trying to form any sort of movement on a simply the level of membership, let alone action.
Yeah.
We're dealing with a lot of people who have come of age in an incredibly fucked up world at an incredibly fucked up time, who have been treated like utter shit by the decayed remains of the welfare state, who have been broken in a million fucking ways before they ever got to this point. That's why they got to this point,
Right.
and that we got to remember, whether in dealing with some kind of organizational schematic, or in simply trying to introduce people to these ideas like you're talking about. We got all kinds of people who have been deeply traumatized, who are coming here from here being just the vague idea of the left,
Yeah.
from uh the fucking wilderness. I mean, truly,
Yeah.
uh uh,
Just
coming
having
from
nothing in their mind except for like scripts written by pedophiles and like
right.
and
Exactly. Yeah, who are coming from this cultural gestalt that was just starving them to fucking death.
Mhm.
And it's really important to have a just a basic formation of ideas about history, um just to make sure people know them at all. That it's incredible uh how many people, and I think this has maybe been getting a little better lately, but I don't have a great amount of hope for it. How
Right.
many Americans don't really know anything about slavery or the Civil War?
I know.
That just have no idea what happened or why.
It's like
And I mean,
you say some like sometimes you'll say to somebody like, "Oh yeah, the 300-year Holocaust that we did," and like the look in their
yeah,
eyes like glazed over, like, "What are you talking about? Oh,
yeah,
slavery, that thing. I mean, it's over." And it's just like,
yeah,
no, 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 no.
yeah.
I,
I mean, I was growing up in a state that made the canny move of not seceding, but also not giving up its slaves.
mm,
Nicely played. Uh, uh,
the
I,
old
I,
speed running trick.
yeah, I was taught in high school, in my honors fucking American AP history class that the Civil War was about states' rights
Yep.
and that slavery only happened to be the right that they were angry about, but it was really a political question. It was the question of Jeffersonian views of the Constitution and of the makeup of the United States versus a more sort of federal united, the sort of republic that we have now. And the fact that slavery was the thing they were fighting over, I don't know. It's just everybody got pissed around the same time.
Yeah.
And it was slavery time, and that's when we were pissed. So that's when we fought. But it could have been over, taxes.
Right. It
It
could
it
have just
wasn't,
been
but
over, bartering or property or ownership
yeah,
or, yeah.
lagoon tariffs.
And it's such a
Yeah.
fucking bald face offensive lie to be like, oh, actually, this wonk shit was way more important than people's fucking lives.
Yeah, especially when the ideologues of the South themselves in writing are like, it's about slavery.
Yeah.
It's
I want to own these.
100% slavery.
I
If I
must own
should
these
die in
people.
this war and people in the future wonder what I was fighting for, it was slavery.
Do
And
not
people are going,
listen
well,
to
no, actually, it was about there was an unusually high corn yield in the Midwest that year, and there was argument over how much to use for seed corn and how much to use for making whiskey, which was very popular with the German immigrants that had flowed into the country so much during the middle 1800s.
Yeah, not to mention that the federal government was trying to approve senators in the states government, and this was a big. It's like fucking kill
Absolutely.
yourself.
Secretary Edwin Stanton,
Yeah.
that just fuck that. We got to remember, in any sort of organized and any sort of educational activity, people have been lied to about fucking everything.
Everything.
I mean, there is no subject on which we have just been told the simple, unvarnished truth. So you got to, when you talk about being radical, take the literal sense of that. To the fucking root.
Yep.
You got to pull shit up by the root, and plant something else, because there is so much that even an American who, in all his or her conscious thought as the right opinions and the right views, in his or her sort of ambient, things I don't think about really, but they form my picture of the world. Those things are insane.
Yes.
Yes.
And
So
you can't allow them to just like be in your mind as something you haven't interrogated.
right, yeah. This is our message about being normal.
Mhm.
Get normal brain in this part. in, in the whole kind of ambient stuff that you don't think about specifically, but it forms your, when anytime you see something and you think, yes, that's the way that thing happens. Yes, that's how that thing goes. Ask yourself, am I being normal right now? Is this normal, or is this some weird shit?
Is this normal to think that the police are necessary and that
Is
that
is
that we
is
have
it
to arrest people for drugs? Is that
is it
normal?
yeah, is it normal to think that, like, there are you have to, like, reach quotas to get public housing?
Hmm.
Is it normal to think that you can fail at getting public housing?
Is it normal to not have health care unless your labor is being exploited?
Yeah, I mean, is it normal to, like, feel yourself get shot and think, fuck, do I go to the hospital?
Yeah.
are, are are you having a normal moment in that moment? Because if you're not, this deserves some consideration.
Right.
That
Um, and that's how you be normal. So, Michael Judge, it is a high honor to have you on my little
Oh, well, thank
Twitch
you.
stream. Thank you so much for coming on. You are welcome anytime.
I,
Uh,
for one, think it's very normal.
I agree. I think you
I'm
are
sorry,
insanely normal.
I've gotten a hold of this now. I can't fucking lose it.
Yeah, well, no, we're gonna get everybody normal pilled.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Everybody in the chat, it's been so nice to have you here. I hope you have enjoyed this. And I'm going to end the stream. But this will be on the Twitch page for a while, and we'll probably upload it maybe to Michael's Patreon if he wants to or something. It'll be
Yeah,
available
I'll
for a while.
link it and stuff.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everyone in the chat.
Yeah, so we got to plug your shit, which is Death is Just Around the Corner.
Oh yeah.
Is the name of his podcast. You can find it on patreon.com. What is the
Patreon.com/Death Corner.
/Death Corner. And then
Which is funny because I didn't do it on purpose, but it sounds like it's the name of like a public access show. Like
Yeah.
you
Come
teach
on,
kids
stroll
about
down
death
the
for the
death
first time. Well, children, today.
Yeah. And then you can follow him at Corpse in Orbit on Twitter. And you can follow me at Kinematography. Please subscribe to this Twitch channel. I will be having cool guests like Michael a lot often and talking about other kinds of shit like this. And so appreciate. Is there anything else you wanted to plug?
And normalcy.
Be normal, everybody. Thank you so much.